Guys, I'm back. Thanks for the waiting. I think we've got people joining in, and but we'll get started. This is Roshan. Great to have you. Thank you, New Delhi Salesforce Developer Group, for having me, for inviting me for the session. I hope we all are keeping safe, staying healthy, and I think it's 4 weeks now that you've been in lockdown. So let's hope that we all pass out of this very soon and very safe. Okay, so without wasting any further time, today we're going to talk about, I know we said 360-degree view of a Salesforce integration. I put a simpler name here, but the idea of today's session is if somebody's getting into an integration project, or as a developer, when I started more than 10 years ago, and when I got into my first integration project, I was absolutely clueless of what's happening around me, because there were so many keywords, so many terminologies, lots of, if there's anybody here who's already working or who's already involved in any integration project, you would know the amount of jargon that is used around you. So the idea of today's session is to make you aware of what really happens in integration project, what does it take, what are the constituents of a typical integration project or a Salesforce integration project, and how do we approach certain things. And maybe irrespective of whether you're a developer or consultant, when you look at an integration problem statement, what are the things that you start with, right? So that's the eventual idea. Yeah, we may not be able to get into the depths of certain concepts, because integration is vast. So there are a lot of things that we'll talk about, but we'll touch upon a lot of things to understand what they are and why they are, more than getting deeper into a particular concept. Maybe that's for future if we get another opportunity. But yeah, today's session is all about a 360-degree view of a given integration problem statement and a potential solution. But before we start, for people, obviously, I have to introduce myself. That's my name. That's how I look. That's the name of the company that I run, Altalk. I am a, I come from a developer background. That's why all this session I've been able to put together. But I'm more of a consultant or a solution. I would say a Salesforce consultant and a professional trainer as well. That's briefly about myself. That's the list of events or places that I've had an opportunity to present or talk about various things very briefly. I also had, most recent one was the TDX, the first TDX event by Salesforce at Bangalore. But yeah, that's a bigger list. I don't want to go to the list, but yes, it's for you if you want to know more about what I've done in the past. All right. What is integration? So again, it's an assumption. The audience that we have here are maybe first time integration, or know a little bit but not too much. That's the kind of audience that we're talking about here. So pardon if we're not getting into a particular area that you are looking forward to. We'd love to hear that feedback after the session and take up that accordingly in future sessions. And with my limited skills of drawing and the PPD skills, I've tried to put together a story or a picture here, and see what really are we talking about. What is integration and why do we need it? Those are the two questions that I want to answer even before we get into any technical concept of how it's done. So these two houses that you see are two different systems. So I would say, let's say the greenhouse house on the left side is Salesforce application or system, and the other one is some XYZ system. The very first point of integration, why it's so important, why it's been important for the past decade or more than that, and why it will continue to remain important, is when you look at an enterprise architecture or enterprise application or enterprise landscape, you never see just one system doing all the jobs. So Salesforce, primarily people look at it as a CRM, and then you've got a lot of databases, a lot of native applications that they've been using built on Java or some other traditional platform. So when we talk about Salesforce coming into picture, or for that matter, any new application, they always are co-living or surviving it along with other applications. So we never say an entire enterprise is running on just one application for all its needs. So it's very normal. It's like people like us living in a society. Most of us, we live in a colony, or we live in a society. We don't live on a mountain and try to survive on our own unless we have got some $100 million on our name. But we co-live, we coexist is what I mean to say here. So similarly, systems or applications also coexist in an enterprise architecture or a landscape. And so with Salesforce, you've got other systems as well. And when we have those other systems, there is bound to be a need for them to interact with each other for one or the other reason. So if I talk about a society here, or an apartment, couple of apartments, if these houses are apartments, there's always going to be a reason why you would need somebody's help or a neighbor's help or something of that sort. But when you talk about a more professional environment, it's not just a help, it's a responsibility of saying, okay, if you want this, go to this system, get these details, and then come to Salesforce, do this job, something like that, right? So coexisting is how it is, and that is the reason why integration is so important, and why it will continue to remain important in the future as well. So those houses are like two apartments, two flats, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, we don't have an animation, but it's the visualization that I want to bring here. And then you got a couple of gates and a couple of people standing there. So it's like, I know there's no fencing around the house, but you still got some kind of a gate or a watchman or a lock and key, some kind of, you can't just walk into other house or other building or something like that. You got to have some kind of, permission to say, okay, may I come in? And say, yeah, who are you? Show your ID card. I can't just walk into, a Deloitte office or an Infosys office without having proper permissions to get into the premises. And even after getting into the premises, all of you are working in offices where you got your swipe cards. You have, even if you have an entry to the gate, you still can't enter certain premises within the building or within your office premises. So yeah, this is trying to show that you have a gate, you have, you kind of have watchman who's trying to protect this. And each of these houses have got their own capabilities, maybe, so I said left side is Salesforce, right side is some XYZ system. And let's say that XYZ system has the capability of, generating. So it says Salesforce is primarily a CRM where you generate leads, convert them, work on accounts. But then all the let's say payments and invoices, all of that processing, this particular organization is handling in a different department or different system, which is the right hand side of the other house, the gray or brownish house. So that's where all the payments, invoices, that work is going to happen. And the left hand side is where your customers, the real CRM or the basic Sales Cloud CRM is going to happen, right? So yeah, that is the need, and that's why we need it so much. Okay, we'll probably be referring to these houses and these apartments as and when we move on to the concepts, and that's why I thought it's best to draw something and maybe have it in your mind. All right. So we know what is integration. We know why we need it. That's what we answered, and then we want to talk about the types of integration. So here's a scenario, or I would say, when I talk about, or when somebody comes and tells me, there's an integration need here, or where we got to do some integration in this project. If that's a statement that I hear from a client, from a project manager, from an architect, whoever that is, if I'm a developer sitting and saying, okay, there's an integration, the first question I would ask is, okay, what are we trying to integrate here? The first question is, what are we trying to integrate here? And there are two types that I look at. Is it data, or is it a functional need that we're trying to fulfill? So what we mean here is those houses. Where's the house? Sorry. When I'm going to the other house, why am I going there? Am I just going there to pick up some files and bring it here? Or am I going there to get a job done and then bring the file here? So of course, when you talk about any kind of communication between systems, it is data. So if somebody's wondering, Roshan, everything's data, right? Yes, everything's data. But is it just going there and picking some data, lame data picking and bringing here? Or are you actually going there and, getting a job done and then coming back? So that's the difference between a data integration and a functional integration. So if I go there, so I mean, again, come back to the real world and say, okay, I've got, these files. I know that these files exist in that house. Just go there, get the files. It's a pure data integration where there's no logic. Maybe it's just a basic filtration of which data you want, but it's more or less just some data that you want to pick up and bring it across. But if I say, take this file, go there, talk to this person, he will help you prepare an invoice. He will do all the calculations required based on what product, what duration, all of that. And then he'll give you an invoice which you have to bring. End of the day, he's still bringing me data. But is it just data that is he just going there and picking it up? No. When he went there, he probably, so I'm talking about, I always am referring to people here when we're walking across the houses, and I'll probably later connect in a technical manner who these people are and what we call them in integration terminology. But right now, if we are in the real world and say, this person goes with some input, says, okay, here is the product, here's the customer information, please prepare an invoice and give it to me. So preparation of invoice is a work done by somebody else in that house, right? And that's a functionality. I'm not, and why are we integrating it here? Because we say when we have the ability to, when there's somebody sitting in that house who can prepare an invoice and give it to me, I would not build that preparation of invoice or calculation of invoice in Salesforce. People who are wondering, Roshan, why do we need an integration here? We can still do it in Salesforce. Salesforce can do so many things customized. Yes, but if I already have a system who's doing the job for you, why would you build it? No, you would integrate it. So that's again the question of why again. But yeah, coming back to our example, if I'm going there and getting a job done and coming back, it's a functional integration. If it's just going there, picking up some files and bringing it across, it's data integration. By the way, if you have any questions, I don't know if you have chat functionality, but chat open, but even if not, maybe you can just have them for the end, and we'll make sure that we come back to, at least the areas that we are discussing in this session. We'll try and answer all of them. Okay. So yeah, that's the first question that I ask. What are we trying to bring across? Is it data or is it some functionality? And as I just said, data integration is which is primarily focusing on just getting the data. And if you look at the example down there, people who have already got some kind of, hands-on or some kind of awareness might have heard of this data coming across every day, every week. So it's essentially what? It's just data coming from some other system. So if you read that, a nightly batch integration, a daily data sync, whatever kind of thing it is, if you just get some data from somewhere, it is data integration. Functional one, as I was saying, an invoice, or I want to get the rating of a customer based on some inputs. I take your credit rate, or I say PAN card number, all of this as an input. I go to other system, do some calculations, and say, okay, here's the credit rating of a given customer. Or if I'm saying I have a vehicle, and in Salesforce I am maintaining the vehicle database, but at a given point I want to just know where this vehicle is. Now, by default in Salesforce, we don't have all these GPS and all of that available, and and instead of building it, if there is some person in the other house who knows, okay, if you go there, tell them the car number or the vehicle number, if they can give you the coordinates, you would again integrate it. So we go there, he will probably look it up for you and then give it to you. Again, there's a thin line between this data and functional integration. And that's what I'm trying to say. It is always data, but if it's slightly more than data, there are things which need to be done a little different, which we'll talk about as we move on. But yeah, that is one of the primary differentiating factors. The second question that I would ask is, are we getting it from the other house, or is the other house going to come here and take something from us? So say I'm in Salesforce house. So the question is Salesforce, the first one is Salesforce leveraging other applications, which means somebody from this Salesforce house, from our house, is going to go across the street to the other house and get something. That's one kind. The other kind is we have the functionality, or we have the data. There's going to be somebody coming from the other house to across the street to our place, to our house, to our application, and we will just give them some data or some functionality that we have in our system, right? So these are again two kinds, which would tell me what kind of work am I looking at as a developer or as an architect. This is the second kind that I look at. So a brief description of the same. If Salesforce is trying to leverage data or leverage functionality available on the other system, that's the one kind. If you read the example there, where I'm trying to get some tweets, we're trying to get some customer information. We're trying to get something which is not in my system. You know, if you look at the OR part there, Salesforce using other systems capability to calculate the payable amount, like I said, the invoices or something of that sort, which I don't have in Salesforce. So I would try to go there and get something. That's one kind. The other one is with the other system is trying to leverage data, like I just said a couple of minutes ago. That example is incorrect. Apologies for that. And then there's the third one, or the last one, I would say, the integration interval. The first one, or maybe very common one is, I would say, or more often used, is a fixed interval or a scheduled one where you say, okay, you build some kind of an integration methodology or a system where it'll happen on a regular basis, you know, every day or every hour or something like that, where it's got nothing to do with what's happening in your system. It just goes and gets the data, or it just goes and gets something done. When you say it's real time is more, if I say, if I say IRCTC booking application, when you actually make the payment, it's real time. So when you click the button pay, it has to go to the other system, the banking system, get the authorization done, make sure the account has enough balance, deduct the amount of money, and then come back and say, oh yes, here's the amount deducted, and something like that. So it's like click of a button or some operation, some transaction happening right there. And so if I go back to our house example, something's happening in our house, we need something, you say, oh, go run across the street, get it right away. I'm not going to wait for the end of the day for a scheduled program to run. So that's a real-time need for an integration. Go to the other house, just get it to me, right? Then there's a third one, which is again a little mix of schedule and real-time, which we call as near real-time. So near real-time is not really waiting for an entire schedule or for a fixed hour or a day or a week, but it's still a little delayed. How it's done, probably a different discussion, but I wanted to make you guys aware of the third one as well. So there is a third one as well, which you can think of or ask about if the client is not too sure, or if there is a need of saying, okay, we can't have it real time, but we can't wait for an entire schedule either. What are the other options? You say, okay, there is near real time. We look at APIs, one of them which can help us achieve a near real time without going into depths, but yeah, those are the integration interval options. So just a quick summary, I would say whether it's data or functional, whether it's me going to the other house or the other house coming to me. And then the third one is how often do I go? Every week, every hour, or do I go as and when we need to go there? Because there are limitations. We can't just, it's tough going to the other system, coming back. It's a heavy job. To do something in my own house is faster and easier when compared to me stepping out of the house, going across the street and getting something of that sort. So these are the questions that I would first look at. And now we look at how and what are the options to integrate. So in continuation with what options we talked about. The first one was, if you see this, Salesforce leveraging the other system's services, or just sending data or getting data from the other system. In such cases, the first, it's actually called a call out, if you've heard of that terminology, where it's forgiven that somebody from the Salesforce house has to go out, okay, and get the data or get the functionality done. So when you talk about this going out, now here's again a story. This person who's going out of this house would already have to know where to go. And let's say the other house has got like 10 floors or 10 rooms, and every room has got its own functionality or its own data. Now this person cannot go and search every single time, or he or she already has to know which building, which room is he or she going to get the required data or functionality done. So all of that is part of the solution. When you say, okay, so when you say going across the street, knowing where to go, that's like your endpoint. That's your URL, because from an application perspective, the address really is URL. If in a physical perspective, we talk about a flat number or a street number or a colony name, something of that sort. And obviously in applications, the way we identify systems is a URL. So when we make a call out, okay, don't start reading what we have there. We'll make sure that all of this is covered, but hear me out here. when we make a call out, I need to know where am I going to, or this person already needs to know where he's going. That's the URL we're talking about. When he goes there, he may go with an input, may not go with an input, depending on where he's going and what he's trying to do there. And let me slightly again map it with the technical terminology. This person who's going, I always call this person a method. And the person who's going to help me from the other system is also probably a method. Depends on the other system. It can be a method. It can be something else as well. Let's not bother the other system here. But from Salesforce, if I'm going out, if the person is going out, that person, the person himself is a method. And method may have input, may not have input, right? So that's why it's saying he goes there. But these are special methods. These are not our everyday Salesforce Apex method with normal input output types. We'll see what's special about them in a while. But yeah, these are special methods defined in a special way where we can tell them, okay, this is where you got to go with this input and get back with this kind of output. So that's a call out we make with a given address. And yeah, that's the first part. Then we are also saying we got to consume the service. So what is consumption here? Consumption is nothing but that method who's helping you on the other side. You're trying to leverage their help or consuming their services, right? They're giving you a service. So in this case, we say, okay, their services are giving invoices or creating invoices based on the data that you give. So if this method goes there, says, okay, here's my customer name, product number, cost, whatever. The other person will say, okay, sit down, give me 2 seconds, here's the invoice, right? So when we say a service is service can be anything, right? From a haircut to an Ola provider, from a food delivery to your house, everything is a service, right? So in this case, the other system is actually giving a service. It's a functionality that they're giving. So I need to know where I'm going and what service I'm going to consume, which I will know, and then I'll go there, go to the right person, and get the need done. But technically, it's a call out. It's a method which goes there with a request and a response. So when you say request, you're going with some input saying, here's my customer number and a product and cost. The response is probably a invoice, right? So it's a request response kind of mechanism which we follow when we do this call outs. Then how we can do this, there are some options down in 1, 2, 3. Let's look at them. First one I've already been talking about. The first one is you actually make a call out. You write a method in a special way that can go to the other system, to a given location, give the input, take the output, come back to Salesforce and say, and come back and do whatever you want do with that response you've got. You store it in a data, store it in an object, show it in a screen, do whatever you want. That's normal Salesforce. Show it in Lightning component, VF, or just store it in an object. That's up to us, right? That's what the method callouts can do. I put remote site settings because just to make sure that people who are first timers or new here, when you go to a new address, you definitely have to make sure that that address is already like verified or known to Salesforce. Because otherwise, if the person is trying to go outside the house, it's like if any of you have studied in a boys hostel or a college where you're tied to your rooms and your premises, and you got to have a letter of authority or permission saying I'm going here and I'm allowed to go to this place. More often than not, your parents' place. So similarly here, you got to tell the Salesforce in advance, like, this is the address. We are allowed to go to this. It's not specific to a method, but it's telling your organization that like for this house, it's a list of addresses. You can go to this house. So if you don't do that, your callouts will keep failing for different reasons. So make sure the addresses are actually verified or mentioned in the Salesforce system. I'll show you quickly when we do a quick demo. Where is that? But yeah, you can also figure out when you get the error. But yeah, that's one of the things. Second option, if you see, is outbound messages. I'm sure all of you would have seen this outbound messages when you see workflow actions. There is, along with email alerts and task and field updates, you also have an option called as outbound messages. Now, I've seen a lot of people assuming that it's SMS, but not really. It's actually saying, okay, I've got some system or some service on the other side, and okay, there's a gray area here for outbound messaging. So if there's yeah, it's an arguable point, But let me make the point first before we say what's the argument here. Through outbound messaging, through a workflow, what do? You say, okay, a record is updated. You take this data and send it to this service. So we're still calling a service, or rather calling, we're still going to a system and giving our data to the other system. But will the other system will definitely give a response and come back? No, outbound messages don't do that. They just go give the data and done. They forget it. That's why I said it's a gray area, because normally we say, the other systems got to give us some data or some functionality. But the common part of outbound messaging with call out and other services other options that I'm going to talk about is we going out of our system with some data to a given place. That's the common point, and that's why I had to include it in this list. This list as in Salesforce leveraging other system services, because through outbound messaging also you are defining a system or a service where this data will go to. Now it depends on the other service if they have any mechanism to send back a response in a different way. But in this particular transaction, nothing's going to come back. It's outbound message. It's just ghost. The data will just go to the other system, and the system will forget it. Okay, so that's outbound messages, which is also one of the options. The third one is probably similar to a call out one, but we call it as consuming external services within Apex. Through Apex or within Apex, the terminology is, the word can be used interchangeably. But what we mean here is the system will actually, the 1 and 3 are the same things done differently, which I'll show you when I do the demo. In 1, we were actually writing a request, going to the other system and coming back with a response. And all of this had to be done through a method, writing in a method in a code, the request, response, and all of that. But in number 3, it still has to go out, but there is a special way or a good way in Salesforce where there's an option called Generate Apex. If you've ever seen, I'll show it to you. Through which you can actually get the other service replicated in your system. I would say replicated again is a little word here and there, but you're actually getting, so like I said, the other system, the other person who has the ability to create those invoices, it's also a method, right? That's also a piece of code, maybe written in a different language or a different system, because it's another, it's a different language. It's not Apex, but we have an option in Salesforce called Generate Apex, with some limitations, of course, by which we can get the other method into our Apex language, and they just call the method normally we would do. Like then that method becomes like any other Apex that you write. Nothing special about it. And it internally will take care of where to go, what to do, which address. We don't have to worry about that. And that is why number 3 is one of the first things that we try when we actually want to get a job done. Number 2, outbound message is very rarely used, I would say. And I'm pretty sure it's still there, but personally, I have not seen, it's a very small percentage of projects that we've seen using outbound messaging because of their limitations and because of, I would say limitations. So 3 and 1 are really what we look at when we are trying to, go to a different system or trying to leverage a different system's functionality. So 1, again, I'm trying to summarize here. 1 was probably a little more hard work where I had to know what request we have to give, what format we have to follow, and that system, that other guy will give an invoice in some different format. I have to again come back and convert it in a format or put the data in a format which Salesforce would understand, right? So that I can put it in an object or show it on a screen, all of that. But when you talk about 3, it's probably more easier if you can actually replicate or just, it's in simpler words, it's like copy paste, but it's not really copy paste, of course. In simpler words, it's like getting that method and putting it in your Salesforce like an Apex class, and you just call it normal. That's what just Generate Apex can do. Okay. I hope you were able to get the gist of what we're trying to do when we try to leverage the other system. The next type is other systems trying to leverage our functionality or take data from our system, right? So we expose services. So whenever we say services is nothing but the method, because methods are what get your job done, right? Even in normal class, when you write, the actual operation that you do is always within a method. So services can be read as methods. Now, in this particular way, we from Salesforce have got to open up some functionality, or we are the people who they are coming to. So they will, from somebody from the other house will come and say, oh, okay, I need this work. Or let's say, what kind of job can Salesforce can do? So Salesforce does conversion of lead, right? So let's say they give a lead, we do the conversion, and we give them account opportunity and contact. I'm just taking any example here without complicating the scenario here. So it's our functionality that we can do this. Or let's say, let's talk about custom function. Let's say we are the ones who can generate the invoice and they need the invoice from us. Let's just reverse the roles here. So which means that we have an Apex class with a method which can take inputs, generate and create an invoice record with whatever amount, due date, and all of that, and then give it to whoever is calling the method, right? Now, but how are the options? What are the options that we can use to? Okay, why is this coming? Okay, what are the options that we can use to expose our methods or our functionalities, custom or standard? So there are 4 options. One, Salesforce has got a good list of APIs or services which you can just give it to them, and the other systems will benefit from them without rewriting a single line of code. There is a list which I'll show you, but yes, there are a list of bunch of APIs or functional through which we can expose our functionalities to the other system, which they can leverage. We'll see in a short while what they are, without going into the details, of course. Then you've got something called as enterprise and partner vessels. These are web services, which I will again show you in a while. The next slide is actually talking about what is web service and things about that. But yes, here is again an option where you don't write a single line of code. You just say, take this enterprise vessel, take this partner vessel, do what you want. The last 2 are custom REST services or custom SOAP services, wherein we write a web service, we write a service in a given way so that this can be accessed by other people as in people or other systems outside the Salesforce environment or outside our organization. Because normally, if you know about namespaces or anything like that, you know that, okay, when you call an Apex class, you know that the Apex class exists in your organization. But what if you want to call a class or a method which is not in your organization? So in our case, we are writing a method or a class which can be called from a place which is not in our organization. So that other house, the other system will actually be able to call our methods or services. And all of these are options where how we can give something to the other system depending on their needs. Okay, so and all of these are actually, kind of services. Okay, this. And that's why we need to understand a little bit of why we call it a web service or what this web service is and what are certain, important aspects associated with them. As you can see on the screen, these are platform and language independent programs. So end of the day, it's a program. And we say it's platform and language independent because, like I just said, I'm writing a program, or we are writing a program in Apex, using Apex as a language and on our force.com or Lightning platform. But this can be leveraged by the other people because of this web services enablement, how this method is going to go across as a service, and they can still use it irrespective of whether they understand Apex or not, right? And the format that these web services typically use is XML. I'm sure all of you at some point have seen how an XML looks like. So these use XMLs, okay? And then the second point is pretty much an extension, but we write programs which are independent, and we write it in such a way so that they can be accessible across the organization through internet or through any kind of network. It need not be internet. Internet is also fine, but you still have to write a service which can be communicated across platforms. That's what is a web service. So in simple terms, it's a method you're writing in Apex which can be accessed in any other Java or .NET or any program. Okay. And like I just said, we will write Apex class methods which can be exposed or which can be given to other systems, to other houses as a SOAP or a REST service calls. Let's see how we can do that. So we just said we have to, with a slightly different or special. I put a sample here and highlighted this particular keyword which you see, web service. So yeah, it is very normal. You put a class Again, something to be noticed here is this access modifier global. If you write public or private or anything of that sort, then then you cannot really make it a web service, right? I mean, look at logic. You don't have to remember. Okay, I see a lot of people saying, oh, if you have to write a web service, you have to write it as global and web service. Okay, why? But understand why, because obviously we're saying it's global. It can be accessed outside of our organization, right? So it has to be made global, and the method that you write has to be needs to have this keyword called as web service. Okay, Roshan, do we just write it then it becomes a service? How does it become a service? I'll show it to you how it becomes a service. But yes, by writing like this, we can actually create a WSDL out of it. I'll tell you what a WSDL is. We can create a web service format of this method and then share it with whoever wants it. Anybody who wants it will just say, okay, here's the version that we're giving, use it. And you can actually call this method called make contact through this web service. We'll see how that's done. Maybe actually we'll not see, because SOAP, by the way, let me also tell you this. SOAP is very old and it's got its limitations, it's slow. So unless we're looking at some legacy applications or we are forced to use SOAP, 90%, okay, sorry if 90% is a too big number, but yes, 90% of today's projects are more or less, REST based or using REST services. And that's how we write a REST service in Salesforce. That's special, we said, right? We know it's normal Apex definitions, but with certain specialities. It's a small sample that we put here. Every class that you want to know. So if this class is going to be a service, you must write @REST resource. That's an annotation. I'm hopeful that all of you are aware of annotations in Salesforce like @test, future, and a lot of other like invocable and all of that. So similarly, we've got an annotation called as REST resource and a URL mapping. We'll see in a short while the significance of what of this URL mapping. But once you do that, you can actually use some more annotations at method level and perform certain. So that's why I said once you make it special, you can do a lot of special things here. But end of the day, if you see if you see the format, okay, it's declaring a variable of certain type. If you see REST request, REST response, where we are trying to create variables of that, and after that, using a substring function to read something from the URL, and eventually just writing a query and returning the result. So if you ask me, Roshan, what is this method going to do? I think it's going to just, end of the day, do a query based on some account number, which will come from the URL. Now, where is this URL? We'll see that in the demo. So from the URL, it's trying to read some account number, and based on that number, it's going to query and give the data to the other system. Right? So this is how a REST service can be defined in Apex. The previous one was SOAP, and this is a REST service. So going back to this option, if you see the bottom two, that's how we define our custom services and custom REST or SOAP services. But the standard Salesforce APIs that you see on the top, they also have their own format of either they're REST based or SOAP based, depending on what they build, and they're totally in control of Salesforce. We have nothing in our control. We just take it and maybe share it with the required system or audience. Okay, so yeah, that's how we define it. A brief of SOAP versus REST. SOAP is old. It was developed a language between applications, but this is heavyweight, bottom line. REST is more lightweight, and nowadays, if whatever mobile integrations or any kind of integrations there which are new, which are being built today, are REST based. I'm not going, because each of these topics, by the way, let me tell you, if there's somebody who's very new here, this is only whatever I'm talking about is only the tip of the iceberg. Integration is a huge concept. Everything can be a session in its own. If you want to talk about just this standard SOAP and REST, that itself is a session. If you want to talk about each of those APIs, that itself can become a 2-hour session of what are the different APIs, how they can be used. So just trying to reiterate the fact that this is the tip of the iceberg for people who are very new and we're trying to cover all the areas, right? So that's why it's just a brief of what SOAP is. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol. It's an old one, heavyweight, not used often. If you're really trying to choose which one should I learn first, I would say learn the REST one first. The REST is more often used, scalable, and it's lightweight. Okay, We also said there's a WSDL option in one of these, right? You said enterprise and partner WSDLs, but let's see what is a WSDL really. Just the definition, of course. So it stands for Web Services Definition Language, and by the name we can make out that it's got something to, it's something to do with our web services. So every web service has actually got a definition which is used to identify what it actually does. So if you read the next statement, it describes how to access that particular service and what operations it will perform. And now how to identify is a different thing again, but WSDLs are something which are used to identify, okay, this is what this service can do. It is in XML format, and it gives the information of how that web service works and what are the different things it can do. Not in a not in a document format. No, when we say it describes in an XML format. I'll show you the format, but that's format because XML is very understandable by most applications or most systems. That's why we are trying to. So when we said we can write an Apex service as a SOAP and convert it into a SOAP service, we're actually taking this Apex and converting into an XML format, which can be then understood by all the other systems or applications. Okay, so WSDL is actually giving that kind of definition or telling the purpose of that in not in document format but in XML format, so the other systems can actually leverage that particular service. That's what is WSDL. And because we talked about enterprise and partner WSDL, and we must know this the basics of what enterprise and partner WSDL is. So I'll just take some time here as well. By the name itself, if you see in enterprise and partner, if you're in Salesforce ecosystem, and if you know who we call an enterprise and who we call a partner, let's say we don't know an enterprise, I'm assuming at least we say this so-and-so company is silver partner, so-and-so company is gold partner, diamond partner, and so on. So partners are actually companies, IT companies who work with Salesforce or who actually implement Salesforce for their clients. And clients are actually the enterprises. So initially I said enterprise landscape, enterprise. So if I say, end users, so let's say Coca-Cola, American Express, Adidas, Nike, let's say all of these are customers of, these are people who are using Salesforce. They are called enterprises. And these WSDLs are actually designed in two different ways, one for partners, one for enterprises. We'll quickly see what the differences are. So that when we say, again, coming back to this screen, that we have option of how do you want to open up your services to a different system? So we can actually take that into consideration. Okay, who is it for? Is it for an enterprise or is it for a partner? Who is trying to use this particular option of leveraging some functionality of Salesforce? Depending on that, we choose. How do we choose depending on that? Let's read it. Now, enterprise, when you talk about enterprise, technically, it's nothing but taking an entire copy of your organization. So let's say your organization has got 100 objects, 50 classes, something like that, whatever metadata or all the objects and fields that you've got. It's like taking all of that, putting it in one file in XML format and saying, okay, here's my enterprise history. Why? No, why? What would be the reason? Roshan, why would we put that? Because we're saying, okay, if somebody just wants to access my account object, just run a query and get some data. I don't have to actually write a program for it. I don't have to write an Apex method and convert it to the service and give it to them. No, you can actually just take this WSDL, which is it's like a pre-existing service, nothing less, nothing more. You click on a button in Salesforce, which I'll show you now. You click on a button in Salesforce, and there's this huge file which is generated, which is like an entire copy of your organization. You give it to the other people, say, okay, you can use this, and it's an XML file. Go ahead, use this. It's specific. It's useful for specific organizations. So when it's an enterprise WSDL, by the way, it's not by the enterprise. It's depending on for the enterprise. So let's say I'm trying to build an integration program or build an integration system for a specific client. Let's say I talk about Nike here. If I'm trying to build an integration solution for Nike, I can actually take their orgs, this copy enterprise WSDL and write programs on it. As in whatever system within Nike, they're trying to use Salesforce. So within Nike, there's another system who's trying to use Salesforce services and build some integration solution. So when it's for a given specific application, within that it's normal that you can use enterprise in this particular case. The only problem or rather a property of this enterprise WSDL is if you create a new object. It's logical, common sense. I've taken a picture of what's there in Salesforce today. Now, if something new has come into Salesforce, will the old picture have something new? You got to go again, take a new picture, right? So a family's got 4 members, you take a picture. If there's family's got a 5th member, you still have to go back, take a new picture. Only then you'll have the copy of the entire family with you. So it's like that. If there's a new object, new field, any change in that particular metadata, your WSDL is not valid, or will not. You cannot use this WSDL. If you're constantly making changes and you expect your program to be accessing those new things. If you really want to access those new things on a constant basis, or for whatever reason you want to access those new ones, enterprise WSDL has to be regenerated, because it's like taking a new picture. You have to take the new picture or the regenerated to be able to access it in your program. When you talk about partner WSDL, it's loosely coupled. But that was more tightly coupled. You have to regenerate every single time. Anything changes, it's no more valid kind of thing. Partner WSDL does not change with the change in metadata. So the partner WSDL for your developer edition and my developer edition, or anybody's developer edition or a client edition, would remain same. So I pick up the partner. So I try to pick up the partner WSDL from a Nike organization, and I try to pick up from a different client, let's say a Coca-Cola organization. Both the partner WSDLs will look same. Enterprise WSDL obviously will not look same, because they're going to reflect their respective objects, custom objects, standard objects, everything. So this is more I would say generic, not more, but it's actually a generic program. But what is the purpose? Why would I use this? When as a partner, if say as a company that I'm trying to build a product, we say, okay, I want to connect to Salesforce in a certain way, but this solution should be workable in any given organization. I would probably use WSDL, partner WSDL, build the integration solution so that it can be accessed, or it can be leveraged, or maybe I can build a product and say, okay, this product you can just go ahead, install it, and start using it. Yeah, there's a lot more to how to use this, and more finer differences of these two. But the idea again here is to just give you the basic differentiation factor, and understand those names, why they're put that way. And that's more tightly integrated. This is more loosely integrated. Okay, I also talked about a list of standard APIs. There's more to it. This is not the end of the list. I've just put some important ones which came to my mind, and I asked for the standard documentation. So yes, you have bulk API. I'm assuming you might have heard of bulk API or charter API at some point in your career. But these are pre-built services or programs made available by Salesforce, saying, okay, you want to do this, just use this API. And when you use an API, every API has got a documentation. So and this is the actual, English, verbal document, not verbal, but descriptive documentation written in English, saying, okay, go refer the API documentation. Someone says, okay, what does an bulk API do? I would say, go refer the documentation, because that will tell us what this API can do. End of the day, what is that API? It's a method written in some format in Salesforce, which can be leveraged by the other house to do some job. Chatter API, I'm sure every one of you are aware of Chatter. So if you want to get certain things done in Chatter by the other system, say, okay, use this Chatter API. I don't have to write a program and give it to you. So each one can do a different job. And like I said, that in itself is a session of understanding what each API can do. It's tough to cover that in a 45-minute to 1 hour session. So yeah, but this is what we were referring to. That's why this list. These are some APIs that can be used for different purposes. Sorry. But let me tell you just one thing here. Remember the near real time that I talked about in the beginning? Streaming API is something which can actually be used to, achieve something like a near real time, because of its nature of what streaming API can do. I would suggest just go read 3 lines of streaming API and you know what I'm talking about. In fact, the trailhead given for streaming API is also kind of very brief, which will give you an idea of, okay, how this is actually, replicating a real-time scenario. And yes, I'm not going in deep authentication here, but if you remember the first screen, there were those guys standing at the gate, right? In the drawing that I tried to bring up, you got to have, it's an implicit fact that you cannot access the system no matter what without a proper username, password, or a session ID, or some kind of token. So there are different ways. Authentication itself is like I said, is a topic of understanding how I can get through systems and which is the best one, which is not good, what are the properties and all of that. But as a basic, I can tell you that authentication is required. That's actually the last slide before we go to the demo. So the one way of, if you talk about REST services, you can actually create a connected app, and there is this OAuth 2.0 mechanism, which is used. Bottom line is you create a kind of token. It's like, it's not really a username password, but you like create a token and say, okay, if the other system can actually, use this token, and using that token, the other system will connect to Salesforce. Okay, so the other system, as in the other house, when it comes here, it probably is going to say, this is the token. Okay, token validated, go in, fine. It's like your RSA. If you've ever got an RSA or a bank password, you just click something, you get a token, give it. There's again another one called login method. This is part of our visitors that are auto-generated, especially the enterprise and partner visitors one, where you just give the username, password with a verification token, and you can get through to the Salesforce application. So typically, if you see a SOAP way of doing it, you would see through enterprise visitor, you would see login method available where you have to give username, password, and token. If you're trying to access an Apex REST service, or you're trying to when you talk about authentication in a REST call, we talk about connected app and OAuth authentication mechanisms. With that, if you see, I'm trying to summarize here because this is actually the slide before we go to the demo. We have tried to see, okay, why did we say a 360-degree view? Because we have to say, what are the different types, firstly, and then we say, what are the different options of saying, how do I go out, and how can somebody else come to me, or come to me as in come to Salesforce, and look at different options of providing or building the integration solutions. When we know these options, we ask the right questions, we look at the right alternatives. Maybe we spend some time in analyzing which API is better. Should we write a custom service, or before we write a custom service? So a standard example is, if you know about enterprise WSDL and the capabilities of enterprise WSDL, you would probably refrain from writing a new Apex service and then convert it into a SOAP service when you know that enterprise WSDL can do the job. So that's why we say it's a holistic view of saying what are the different things and options in integration, and what's a call out really is, what's an endpoint. Once you know these things, you would probably be in a better situation. Even if you don't know how to do it, because that's obviously through more practice, you would at least understand the keywords or things that are being discussed around you. Okay. So with that, we are good with our options. We would want to quickly, what's the time? It's 12 already. So I think we've used exactly 45 minutes as planned for the deck that I put down here. So let's go and look at Salesforce of a few things, if not all, how we can make a call out, how I can consume, how somebody else can use Salesforce and things like that. Okay. And then probably if we still have time, we'll go to questions. So give me just one moment. Yeah, I have it here. Okay. So first things first, I want to show you how we, so because the first one we talked about in our example was Salesforce using some other systems functionality, right? So where we are obviously saying we have to write a method or something where it can go to the other system. Again, there for every option that I talk about, there is a REST version or there is a SOAP version, and I have focused more on REST. I'll still show you something for SOAP, but the focus is more on REST here, given the time and the importance of which one is more important. Okay, so yes, if you have more questions or if you are interested, you can still do so, but we are talking about REST here. So a call out to be made to some other system, a REST service, we are trying to call a REST service and leverage some functionality. So in our example, we are trying to, so the need here is, I want to know the weather of a particular city. I want to know the weather of a particular city. And obviously in Salesforce, we have no functionality or option to know what's the current weather in my city, right? So that's the need of integration. Then next question is, when do you want it? Do you want the weather to be updated every day on your screen? Or do you want it when you want it, on demand? I would say, oh no, I would want it on demand. When I say on demand, when I click on a button or when I run the program, when the program is actually executed, I want the weather information of that particular point. So I'm saying, okay, then it's real time. So we know it's, and is it data integration or functional integration? I would say it's functional integration. But yeah, thin line, like I said, you might say, Roshan, it's just going there and getting some data, but I would say it has got the functionality of connecting to some system or knowing, because end of the day, I don't have the sensor to read the temperature. That's the actual functional benefit that I'm getting from this other system. So for me, it's a functional benefit that I'm getting. But yeah, end of the day, it's still data. Okay, thin line. I keep repeating that. Don't focus much. So we can't have a big argument on whether it's data or functional. I would say just know what it is so that you know a bit of, have a better understanding. So we are writing a program to actually, so I'll also show you this API that I'm trying to use. So there's this weatherbit.io. This is the other application or other system which can be leveraged. So which has this functionality of knowing the weather, which can which can be, what do you call it, leveraged in Salesforce, which can be leveraged in Salesforce to know the weather of a given city. So it's got, like I said, REST is more or less, it's through token based. Every system has its own way of doing it. Here we have got some kind of key and master key, which we have used, which we should use in our. So you see this key. It's so based on the API document. So again, if I go to API documentation, it will show me all the documentation which I already studied. Based on that, what I've understood is I should give a key. I should give a input parameter, and this is the URL that I'm trying to reach out to. Okay, that's an API. That's this REST service call out that I'm trying to make here. Obviously, you see certain new keywords here, like HTTP, HTTP request, HTTP response. All of these are inbuilt Salesforce classes that we're trying to leverage. These come into picture every time we talk about an integration solution. If you see, so we are trying to make a call out and say, okay, I want to get the response, and that response which I get is in an HTTP response format. So I say the return type is HTTP response. How do I send it? So I've defined these parameters, key, some input, some, and the URL, and then I say send. Send what? Request. All of this are actually, what do you call? You see this? Okay, let me go through. I don't want to really go line by line, but you can clearly see we've defined the URL. In the URL, we've used these parameters. End of the day, take this URL, set it as the endpoint, and then request. Use this request and make the call out. When you make the call out, how do I make the call out? So right now I'm going to just show you in the console. I'm going to execute this method called as weather details integration dot get forecast. Right? When you do that, it's making a call out. It's come back with a response, and yeah. Oh, it says 204, and I did a good thing of what? Having a backup response, because demos you never know. So right now it says STD response, no content. I don't have any content for whatever reason. I don't know why but I did the test just before the session, and thankfully I have got a response, and the response looked like this. So if you see, this is if you ask me what format this is a JSON format. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. It's in simple words, it's actually key value pair kind of a format that you see, and you can actually read certain things: time zone, country code, certain things here. But obviously, sunrise, sunset, temperature, latitude, all of this. So a lot of information coming from. So this is what I'm getting from the other system. But obviously, because I cannot read it in this way, Salesforce, will it understand this way? No, right? So in Salesforce, you have got certain ways of, there's a method called as dot serialize dot deserialize, which actually, what do you say? Which actually, hold on a second. Are you guys able to see my screen? Okay. I just got a message from somebody saying that screen sharing is paused. Oh, damn. Okay, wait. Share it again. Can you see now? Okay. Thanks for that. I was not checking the message, but just now I could check the message which shared. It said they were not able to see the screen. Okay, wonderful. I think now you should be able to see my screen. That's the unfortunate part if everybody's on mute. Okay, I'll have to quickly repeat what I was trying to show. I'll go to the console and yeah, we wrote a small Apex class with a method. Define some key, which this key is like a token to access the other system. It's called weather bit, and this is the URL. So to the URL, we are giving some parameters: city, which city do I want to know for, and a key which will let me through the gates. I need a key to get through the gate, so it's like that key. And then you have got this. This is what I was referring to: HTTP classes that are predefined classes that you can use to make these call outs, store the response, and do more with that. Right now, what we're doing is we're using the key and city, creating a URL, adding the URL to this request variable, and using this send method, we are saying http.send, put the request there. And the response which you get is actually an object called as HTTP response, and that's why the return type is HTTP response, right? So I did this execution, and for some reason, yeah, let's just see the log. For some reason, it says no content, status code 204. But I have an old log. You see, this is how it looks like. You see this? All of this is in very unknown, strange format. I took this because I know this is the rest actually gives more often than not a JSON, a response in JSON format. SOAP, when you talk about a SOAP service, the response for a SOAP service generally is in an XML format. For REST, it's in JSON format. So because I know this is JSON format, I tried to just go to an online viewer. I put this here, and I try to see in a simple format and say, okay, what is this really? Saying, okay, it's got some data, and it's got the weather information here: sunrise, sunset, temperature, latitude, precipitation, date, time, when did I request, all of that. So it's got a lot of information that has come from the weather bit, which is the other system. We are trying to leverage the functionality of the other system here, right? So this is what I've got here. Now, what do I do with this? I can store it in an object. I can show it on a screen. I can do whatever with it basically. So right now, to be able to do whatever that is, if you go back to the class, you have it stored in a response which you're returning. Once you have it in your class, in your Apex, then you can do whatever you want, whatever logics you want to write, take it, format it in such a way, show it on a screen. So we're actually trying to put something here. We're trying to take a city and show the weather details on the screen. So those things are something which you can see. Let me see if that's working or not. Because that was definitely taking, and it looks like it's, oh, wonderful. It's working. So on click of this, it's actually a call out which is made, and it's showing me the current temperature, very hot outside, 35 degrees centigrade. Feels like 41, wonderful, even better. So what you do with it, and I mean, it's probably a larger code to see how we get that, but I would say it's simple in terms of once we have it in Apex, it's your normal Apex skills, how you can bring it through the controller to a Lightning component and show it like this, for a given car, for something like this. Okay, so in this example, we try to leverage the functionality of some other system, get the data into our system, and show it, use it on our Salesforce ecosystem. The next option is how we build a REST service and how the other system can use it. For that, if you remember that sample that I was showing on the slide, we had something called as this, right? And then you have get, delete, post, yeah. These are certain annotations that can be used with methods, and there's a significance to it. Okay, but every service has got a name. This service, the name of the service is not this. That's one of the confusions which a lot of people have when you write a service. You think when you write a service in your Apex, you think that this is the name, right? But no, that's not the name of the service. This is the name of the service. That's how this service is going to be accessed from the other system. This is just the name of the class. And then this is for any kind of parameter that you're going to pass to this service. But then the next question is, Roshan, okay, there are methods here. How do I know which method do I call here? Because if it's just one method, then even if it's just one method, how do I know which method? Because typically when you call a program, you got to know the name of the program or the name of the method. But that's where these other annotations come into picture. When you have a get, delete, post, which come along with @rest resource, that will define if you're trying to do a get, it automatically knows this is the method that's going to be called. And how do we do that? Okay, right now I don't have a different XYZ system. I don't have the other house. I'm not logging into some Oracle Java application. So I can still use Workbench for that kind of testing. So Workbench, if you are, I'm sure most of you are aware, but Workbench is actually a different application than Salesforce. It's used with Salesforce credentials, but it's not an application within Salesforce. That's why you have to every time log in. Okay, so right now I'm still logged in. Let me just refresh the session. No, I'm not logged in. So because I'm logging in here, I will not need an additional authentication mechanism to access these services. Like in the previous one, I had to put a key there before I make the call out. But because I'm already in Salesforce by logging in, I've logged in through my credentials. So they are skipping the authentication here in our case. If anybody is wondering of what happened to the authentication, that's skipped here because we've already logged in. And you've got something called as Text Explorer. You see these options: get, post. So that's what determines which method is going to be called when you call the service. So by default, it says service data v7.0, and I want to call account. Maybe I want to do a post. Okay, and with post, we need to give. I'm expecting name, phone number, account number to be given, and it will probably insert the account as part of the method that I've written. It's going to take this and create an account in Salesforce database. Okay, let me just show you how to do that. Because it's REST, the format that we're going to use, the format that we're going to use is JSON. Okay, services Apex says this is standard. For any Apex call that you're trying to check, and this is the name of the service. It's given me some response. Well, what do I know with this response? I know nothing with this response. Okay, wait. We're supposed to do a post. So when you do a post, let me do a post first. Better. So when I'm saying a post, as per my method, the post is take these inputs, create an account variable, and insert it. So we're doing a database operation here. And this format which I followed is a JSON format. Obviously, you'll have to understand JSON before you give the format, but I've used this format, doing this call, chose post here, and execute. Okay, it says Apex error. Why? Required fields are missing. Okay, fair. The database is changed now. We have got two new fields on the account object, without which the insert cannot happen. So insert has failed. That's why we got the error here. If you see the raw response, you will see something like this. This is also in JSON format. So you see this at the bottom. I can take this. Want to understand any raw response? Go read any take viewer. Put it here. View. It will show like this. This is to understand technically what's happening in the response, what kind of things that are coming, so that you can debug what's wrong. So in my case, I'm not going to go ahead debug, but you can still see that these fields is what are missing. Response, and that's why the account could not go ahead. But it still called the right method. So what is the other method? Let me try delete here. Okay, do a delete. I need to give a account number. So let me just quickly see what, let me just take an account number. So now that we have an account with account number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I hope this works. $200, okay, it tells me that things were fine. Let me just go and refresh the screen and see if this got deleted or not. Yes. So basically the ID is no more valid. That's why that account is not showing up. AB and AMRO, even if I go to this all customers, I'll not see that customer anymore. That's gone from this list. So what am I doing here? I'm trying to, so look, if you ignore the functionality here, if you see the fact that we have written a service and Workbench is actually an external system, where Workbench is simulating an external system. It's not Salesforce. And from an external system, using this URL, giving some input by choosing what kind of, operation it is, I'm able to call a given method and execute it. So now what we have done here is we have made one caller to the other system, which was weather, getting the weather information. And in this case, the other system is trying to play with our account information through this REST services. So this is how you typically operate with our REST services. You define it, you get it. And I mentioned JSON.serialize. I'm not showing it here, but JSON.serialize is a method which you use to, so whatever raw response you get, that raw response can be, put in an Apex class using a wrapper class. I'm sure all of you know class. It's a container. It's just a class to store all your response that you're getting, and then use in whatever way you want to use in your Apex operations. Okay. So that's REST for you. Pretty much what I wanted to cover. I think it's 1 hour that we start, but I'll quickly show you a couple of other things that I talked about as part of the session, which is related to SOAP. Okay. I know if it was a different Sunday, all of you would have been getting late for a movie or a lunch with your near and dear ones, but because it's, sorry, what am I doing? Because it's a lockdown Sunday, I think people have, I hope you've got enough time to extend this session. But yeah, it will not take more than 7 more minutes. So when you say API, you see all those other, API related stuff. And this is what I was talking about when I say enterprise WSDL. Just click on this, while it opens. While it opens, we'll check something else. Okay, is it already open? Okay. It's got all my different applications. I'll still just go and generate. It's going to take maybe a minute or so. So while it is getting generated, let's look at some of the other things that I talked about. Okay, it's stuck. Apex classes. So all of you must have seen this option called as generate from WSDL a lot of times. What is it really? So this is that option. Okay, I hope you can still, okay, I hope you can still see my type because it's saying fine. This option number 3, where I said consuming external service through, so generate from WSDL or generate Apex is kind of same thing, because from WSDL is like somebody else has given you a web service in a format of XML, and you're trying to, like I said, create a copy paste in your own org so that you can just do normal Apex. When you can treat that service as just another Apex class and not really build the entire request response and all of that. So typically you use that HTTP request response to, call out and form the request, send it, get the response, and the response will be in some format. You have to again write code to, decode all that format in an understandable way in Apex. So all of that can be avoided when you do this. But obviously when you do this, you need to give it a service. So it'll ask you which file. Any file that you have as an XML can be taken here. I don't have any XML right now, but if you take that, it will automatically generate what do you call an Apex class for you. Similarly, you can write an Apex class and create a WSDL for it. So from WSDL to WSDL. So when you say from WSDL, you have a WSDL, you're trying to create an Apex. When you say from Apex to WSDL, you write a Apex class and you create a WSDL for it. How to do that? We can just what do you call face that. Just take this. It's in a slideshow format. Let me just take this and quickly show it to you. Okay, I'm trying to keep it simple. Fine. All it does is just basic insert, which is not our concern. So once I save this, yeah, it's saved, no problems. I go back to Apex class. What is the name? Sample soap. I just refresh this. Go back to sample soap. None of the other options classes had this option called as WSDL. If you notice, even in the when I said all, none of the classes had got this option of called WSDL. Apart from our, let me do more here. We still have got more. Okay, fine. Give me 1 second. Yes. So if you notice, none of them got apart from this because we put that web service keyword there. When I click on this, it's again going to create a WSDL, an XML format of that particular class, which can be given to anybody, any other system or developer, other system developer, so that they can go ahead and use it. So while that is generated, let's now look at the standard ones which got generated. Why is this still not? Okay, yeah, there it is. A lot of things. You don't even expect to go and read this because this is a partner WSDL. Enterprise WSDL is even much, larger in terms of size. This is all SOAP based. Yeah, this is the XML format. This can be given to the other system and they can use this to, okay, this is still loading. This is too heavy, I think. Enterprise WSDL, I can actually show you the object names because that's very specific. Here you see a lot of generic entities of Salesforce, which you would have never seen. They're all internal ones. It'll need a lot of understanding first to how to use this before they can start using them. Okay, this is still getting generated. This is still getting generated. So while it gets generated, what did we do here? These are the standard SOAP ones. This is something which we created and trying to, create a SOAP out of it. Yeah, there it is. Sample SOAP, that's the name. So in case of SOAP, it just takes the name, as you can already notice. In case of REST, that's not the case. In case of REST, it really takes the name that you give in the, which you give in the URL here. Okay, that's the name of the service there. Don't forget, that's the URL that you'll use. So, and you've got a lot of by defaulted ones. Okay, if you see the right hand side, the scroll that I'm doing, you will notice how big this file is. This is still better because Enterprise WSDL is still loading. That's too big in size. Okay, finally this is loaded. I'll just show you something. Let's say, yeah, you can see car routes is an object. I have all my standard and custom objects and everything listed here. Sorry, I think these are fields, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, this is fields. As part of account S object, these are fields. Then you've got a lot of such thing. Everything is very specific in terms of this is case object, some things in case object, right? So Enterprise WSDL is very specific. And if somebody wants to, get access to your objects and do some basic operations, you can actually, you don't have to have the pain of writing this class and just writing one-line codes there. You just give the Enterprise WSDLs and they can still use it very much for these kind of operations. So with this, we have seen generation, providing SOAP services from the system, standard and custom ones. What we don't have here is a custom a SOAP service call out and a SOAP service generate from WSDL, because I honestly think SOAP is quite outdated, and given the time that we had, SOAP was going to take some more time, and the focus was really on REST. But for REST, we've actually covered everything: how to write a service, how to expose it, and how to call a service from the other system. So that for that we used Workbench to see how we can call a service which we've written in Salesforce. All right, so I know we can go on, and there's so much we can talk about the parsing, because if people are wondering, we've not talked about parsing. Parsing in itself, I mean, it's not really a concept in itself, which will take a session, but yeah, parsing is again, it's going to take some, it will take some taking or some discussion to look at the responses, understand how parsing needs to be done. So basically parsing, for people who are wondering what parsing is, it's trying to convert that strange format into an understandable Apex format. So that's what is called parsing. And when you do this generate from WSDL, when I clicked on this, if you notice, there's a button on the right hand side, parse WSDL. So it's actually it's actually going to do it automatically for you when you use this option. So if somebody is ever giving you a SOAP service and say, go ahead, use this service, do not start writing an Apex for it and start making this huge requests and responses. Try to see if you can actually put that XML here, just choose file, upload it here and parse it. There are certain limitations. There are a lot of formats which are not supported in this automatic parsing. But if it is done, then that is nothing but a normal Apex class. You just see, go ahead, look at the method name, pass the parameter, and it's job done. Okay. So yeah, with that, I think we have come to the end of our session. Just give me 1 second. Let me just double check if I've got everything covered. Okay, call out we've seen, everything we've seen. I think we've seen what we wanted to see at a basic level. It's just the consumption of the WSDL, right? So let me also quickly try if I can show that so that we don't have any. I'm just trying to take some random XML from the web, which is a web service, and I want to take it and try to convert it into a sorry. Yeah, we've got the service here. Take this. Save it. Save it and come back. A lot of times what I'm trying to show here will not work because of certain keywords that are used. If they're not supported, these complex types, these elements that we see, if they're not supported, the file will actually not work for us. So I'm still giving it like a quick attempt here. Actually, that's not the best way to store it. So let me try doing this and remove this from the top. That's our WSDL. And if you can see, those operations that it can do are pretty much there in the name. Let me just save it. Download sample service. What was the style of the file? Doesn't matter. Let's go back to our web. Where is our web? Click on generate from WSDL, choose file. I'm only going to give one attempt because I don't think this will work. But let's just keep trying. Okay. Not supported. Like I said, there are certain things certain elements that are not supported. But I would say if you get a WSDL ever, try this first, because if this works as a developer, your job becomes much easier. Okay, so that was one failed attempt that we did, but yeah, at least you know the options. If you ever get a WSDL, give it a try, and you will know what we're talking about. With that, we've come to the end of our session. And Atul, if you're still there, I hope all of you are still there. It's a little tough when you're doing a non-interactive webinar, and I know it cannot be the interactive one because then it's going to take even longer. I'd love to do one, when we meet in person. But yeah, this is what I had for today. I hope you all learned something new, or people who already knew had a refresh. Anything that we have not covered, like I said, I'm repeating it for probably the fourth time, saying we wanted to focus on how different things are done in integration, what are the various elements, and yeah, go on with it in future if we want to get into a deep dive into a particular topic. All right, that's all I had. I hope all of you liked it, and please share your feedback in whatever ways it can. This is my LinkedIn and Twitter handle, Roshan Kotla. It's very simple to find me anywhere. And you can, if there's a question or if there's any kind of discussion, even it's with not regarding to these integrations, always open for a discussion or a talk. Yeah. So I would like to hear more from you. Thank you all for your time. Atul, if you're still there, any closing comments? You want to say thank you for me? Thank you to me before. Okay, let me stop sharing first. I can't see anything. Stop sharing. Atul, I think he's muted. And how do I mute you guys? Unmute you guys if there's a question. I don't have the rights. Let me just check with Atul if he can do that for us. Do you have chat enabled? No, I don't see chat here. Hey Rupesh, good to see you here. Okay, I see some familiar names now. Sumit, Sagar, Ramaguna, Manoj, Rupesh, Bala, and some new name, of course.
Hey Roshan, tell me.
Hey Atul, yeah, I was just we're done with the session. I've said thank you to everybody. Maybe I was thinking that you also want to thank me and unmute these guys if they have a question. Otherwise, I think
No. So we are not going to be unmuting them.
Okay.
Whatever their questions are, you can see them in the chat window.
Oh, is it? Do we have the chat enabled? Because I didn't see it anywhere.
Okay. Can you see the chat?
Wait a second.
The chat window should be enabled for everyone now.
Can somebody type, and maybe Atul can verify if you're able to type? Even if there's no question, just type a test, because I don't see the chat. No.
Hold on. Test. There you go.
Can somebody still?
I just typed test.
Oh, is it? Okay, something wrong on my
screen. You know what? Let me help you with this. So I'm going to recite all the questions, and you can take up these questions and if you can answer them one by one. If you're not able to see the chat.
Yeah, sure. If I can't see the chat, we can do that. Yeah.
No worries. So let me tell you. Okay, so we have a question from Sitanshu.
Mm-hmm.
It was around half of the session. He asked this question: do we need to update remote site settings for outbound messages?
For any kind of outbound call that is going out, remote site setting is required. That's the understanding. So
got it.
I would like to learn from anybody else if there's anything changed there. But it's been, and I'll be honest here, it's been ages that I've used outbound messaging. But yeah, that's what my memory says. Yes. Next question.
Got it. Okay. So the next question would be, what is the use of URL mapping?
So that URL mapping is actually, it's a syntax of defining how this particular service. If all of you have seen, we've written a class, and the top of the class we said @REST resource, which is saying that okay, this class is being defined as a REST service. It's a resource, REST resource. That's the keyword that Salesforce has given us. The URL mapping is telling us how do we connect to this particular one. So if you see, when we went to the workbench, which is like a simulation of another system, in the workbench we actually said, API/apexes/account. So that is, so it's like mapping of a URL to a given service in simple words. That's how we are identifying this is the class that is going to be invoked and executed when you use this particular URL. So yeah, that's my answer. Who asked that question, Atul? If we don't know if the person is still there in the participant, because
there's this guy called Manoj. Manoj, are you?
Yeah, Manoj is there. So I hope I answered your question, Manoj.
All right. Thank you, Roshan. The next one is SOAP 1.2 supported now?
Wonderful. Okay. Again, honest answer. SOAP, SOAP is outdated, not using, and I would say, see, support would never go off. I mean, typically, I cannot answer for the specific support 1.2, but typically what we see is if there's an old service, it's still supported with certain limitations, and most of the old ones, the last option which I was trying to do, the generate from, still may not work. So you'll have to write big programs to create requests, and also write your parsing programs to do that. But yeah, I don't have a specific answer for the question of is SOAP 1.2 supported or not. Sorry for that.
No worries, no worries. Again, guys, you're also free to ask any of your questions on the New Delhi SFDC-DUG.com group website, where Roshan's post is mentioned. So that's where we are going to be posting the recording and slides. And there's a comment section down below. You can also post your questions there, and we are going to make sure we reach out to Roshan, and Roshan gets those questions answered as well.
Or even if you just tag me there, because I think the comments there are directly integrated with Twitter. So even if you just tag me, I'll get the notification and
right, that is also feasible, guys.
Feel free for all the communications is what I would say.
Yeah. Next one. Okay, can we get response in XML in REST API?
Okay, if the question is technically, does REST support XML?
Yes, that's what it means. Yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
Awesome. All right. So
no. I'm sorry. No, I think SOAP can still support both, but REST gives us JSON. And to just add to that comment, it always depends on how the service is actually defined on the source system, which will more or less define what it is. But it's JSON for REST.
Right. So guys, if I add a couple of bits there. From a support perspective, yes, XML and JSON both are supported in REST API. But to Roshan's point, he's absolutely right. It depends on how the REST is coded, because certain REST APIs does not support either XML or either JSON. But 99.99% of the scenario nowadays, all the REST APIs are supporting JSON. And frankly, almost 80% of them are only supporting JSON.
Right. So yes.
Awesome. All right. So Roshan, yeah, that's all the questions we have here, guys. So we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much, guys, for joining this session. We have more sessions coming in. We are packed. I think till July or August this year. There's going to be a session every week. I hope that's not too much for everyone. And Roshan, thank you very much. Thank you for taking up this session and enlightening us with so much knowledge. And guys, you will be able to find the recording and the slides of this session very soon, within 24 hours on the New Delhi website itself. Guys, okay, Roshan, I've got one more question here. If you can also have more. Okay. So there's a request from Priyadarshini if we can have a session on security and authorization aspects. Right. So Priyadarshini, yes, we'll definitely plan it out with Roshan. And you'll get to know. We are going to post the session, and yes, there are a lot of sessions still planned. So yeah, stay tuned. I'm pretty sure maybe another session from Roshan or some other session will give you better idea of those concepts.
Yeah, so Atul, that comment must have come from, because what I actually laid out as a prerequisite, or rather disclaimer, was we were trying to look at only the various areas and not getting into deeper ones. And we said in their feedback they can let us know which specific area they would want to know more about. I think that's what Priyadarshini. Thank you, Priyadarshini, for sharing that. And then we can identify who, when and who can do that. But yes, at least it tells us an interest from the audience of what they want.
Yes. Great. Awesome for that feedback, guys. And again, you're welcome to share your feedback with us on our email ID. You can find it on our website. You're welcome to share your feedback on our Twitter page. You can directly reach out to any of the volunteers. You can reach out to Roshan. So yeah, it's an open forum, guys. Reach out to anyone and we can have that.
I just have one thing to say there.
Yeah.
So guys, just make sure anything good on public, anything bad, please write personally. We'll make sure we work on it. That's a personal.
Yes, for sure, Roshan, for sure. All right.
On
All right,
online.
Roshan, we're gonna wrap this up. It must
Absolutely.
be
Thank you so much. You were a wonderful audience. If you guys see there's people were consistent enough. Thank you, Atul, for doing this and all the other sessions that you're putting up every Saturday. Look forward to them. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Roshan. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Bye. 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 Enjoy your Sunday.